everybody, it's Paul from Alexandria Knife Sharpening and Laser Engraving. So it's time to do our homebrew Evapo Rust. And a couple shout outs here. A guy named Jerry who's a follower of the channel. Just say Jerry W. I won't say his last name in case he hasn't went out there. But Jerry sent me an email, probably might even be months ago. And he said, hey, check this out, Paul. I know you love using Evapo Rust. And this guy, put a lot of effort into making homebrew of Evapo Rust. It seems to have worked out pretty well. And I kept the email. I went and checked out the video. I will link the video in the description here. I will link, of course, all the things that you need to do it, which are pretty simple. And I'll give you some breakdown, a little bit of what I've done with cost-wise. So here's the long and short of the big video that I will link to this if you want to watch all his details and stuff that he did. His channel is called Beyond Ballistics. It looks like he's maybe like a treasure hunter guy who, goes and searches for stuff, and then a lot of times that stuff's rusty and you want to de-rust it. And he said he couldn't afford to keep buying Evapo Rust. In general, I can tell you Evapo Rust runs around $25 to $30 a gallon. So it's not inexpensive. I bought 5 gallons of it this year. I have about 2.5 gallons left, and that cost me around $130. To make the home brew is roughly, from my figures, depending on quantities that you buy, only about $4.50 a gallon. So we're talking $30 a gallon to $4.50 a gallon making it yourself. So the next thing is just, hey, let's try it out and see, does it work as well? Even if it doesn't work as well, if it's close, it still might be worth it for a lot of people. Because, I mean, come on, $4.50 a gallon as opposed to $30 a gallon is a big difference. The other interesting thing you'll see from his video is that his formula lasted longer. He found that his Evapo Rust was wearing out a lot quicker than the homebrew formula he made. So that's really cool too, so that it might even last a lot longer. So we'll check that out. He did some pretty extensive testing to make sure it wasn't damaging anything, which is pretty cool. And we're going to get started here. So the formula is really simple. The basic formula is 100 grams of citric acid, and I'm going to use baking soda. You can also use caustic soda, and there was one other thing that you could use that the guy who came up with this is over in England. I forget what the other thing was called. It doesn't look like something that I see a lot. I forget what it was, but they're all in that same like baking soda family. I'm going with baking soda because it's super cheap and easy to get. I get it at Costco. 13 pounds, this is like $8. And like I said, I need 63 grams. This is 6.12 kilograms. So it is a ton. Clearly, you don't need something that size. We use it in the swimming pool we used to have, so we always got the big bags, but that is still not, you got enough. You could make gallons and gallons and gallons of this stuff. You could probably fill a swimming pool of Evapo Rust. So the other one is citric acid, and I have some citric acid over here. I got actually 2 of them. So this one's 1,000 grams here, and this one is 100 grams. And this is the size we need, so 100 grams. We will use this entire bottle. And then we're going to add the 63 grams of baking soda to it and let that stir up. It's going to kind of fizz up and create this solution. And then we add dish detergent to it. Now, my favorite dish detergent for everything, I've used different ones, but for everything I've ever used that needed dish detergent, it's best to just get Dawn. It's the best stuff. It really is. It's super safe. They use it, when they're cleaning little birds off that have oil on them. There's just nothing like Dawn. I think it is the #1 dish detergent in the world. You might have to pay a little bit more for it, but I've always found it worth it. So we're using Dawn. We're going to give a little squirt of Dawn in there. He didn't give any exact measurements for the dish detergent. he just kind of squirted it in the tray and that was it. He said he didn't have time, and it didn't seem to make that big of a difference that he was going to go and test out all the different variations of that or other options of mixing it in there. But he basically said, hey, if you're basically if you're not a chemist and you don't know how things are going to react, just use dish detergent as the last part of it. So that's what we're going to do, and let's get started. First thing we're going to do is measure out our citric acid. So I have my Taylor scale here. I am going to put it on grams, and it's already on there. This is an empty container. We're going to tear that out. And this is my 1,000-gram container of citric acid. Now, if you've never used citric acid, you don't have to be super concerned with citric acid. It is it's a very mild acid. It's used in lots of different things. I use it a lot in my photography stuff that I used to do. We're at 67 grams there. That's about how much baking soda we need, which is 63 grams. 87. It's one thing's funny when you're pouring citric acid. Sometimes, especially if it's the summertime, you'll see it like pop. It like jumps. You'll see the little granules jumping around. But it's not something you need to be concerned about. It's a very low acidic acid. So we're at 103 grams there. Just going to take a couple out. See if we can get it right. And 102, a little more. 100 even. All right, so there we go. We got our 100 grams of citric acid. Now we need our 63 grams of baking soda. So we're going to tear this out again. Okay. Now let me get some baking soda here. Okay. Let's get the baking soda going here. 40. 53. Need 10 more grams. 62. We need 1 gram. 63. All right, so there's our formula. The only thing we need to add to that is a squirt of dish detergent. All right, so let's get started mixing this up. All right, so I got my little glass stirring rod here. I'm gonna start with this. Let's see if this 1 liter will fill this container. How much? Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, I'm gonna start with my acid first. Just gonna add this nice and slow. Get this stirred up. So there's our 100 grams of citric acid. And then we're gonna, next we will add our baking soda to it. And we're gonna get a reaction. It should like fizz. And then it's gonna burn off, I think it creates some type of salts. I forget what it. I am not a chemist. I'm just following someone else's instructions. Okay, so now let's add our baking soda. Yeah, and there's our reaction. So we knew we were gonna get that. That's normal. And we're gonna let that whole thing do that until it settles down. Now that looks pretty good. All right, I'm gonna go get some dish detergent and I'll be right back. Okay, so here's the Dawn, and it's supposed to act as a surfactant. And if you're a chemist, you could probably tell me what that is. I have no idea, but he basically just took it and he kind of put it through the solution in no real arbitrary amount. We're gonna go with that. All right, so this should be the rust removing solution. I'm just gonna mix that a little bit. We're still getting some fizzing, but once those two are combined together, that's supposed to give us our rust removing solution. This actually smells quite nice. Evaporust has a kind of a, it's not a bad smell, it's just a, I would call it a kind of a weird smell. All right, I mean, that looks pretty well mixed to me here. I'm going to pour it back into this 1 liter container. All right, so for test number 1, I have 2 equal sized jars. One happens to be plastic, one's glass. That shouldn't make a difference. The more rusty of the two, I feel, is this pair right here. So I'm going to make the harder challenge for the homebrew. I just feel, I'll show you guys both of these so you can see them. They're both about equally rusty, but I feel this one's a little bit more. We got this really bright orange rust down there. I feel it's just a little bit worse, but not too far. But we're gonna put the one that I see more visible rust on the harder challenge one on the homebrew. Okay, so I can't even get these screws. I can't get this, or I was gonna take the springs out, but they're stuck on there because of the rust. All right, so here we go. We're gonna put one in here, put the other one in here. This one I'm gonna pour brand new Evaporust. This one's the homebrew. So here's the homebrew again. It's been sitting for a little bit. I think I put a little bit too much soap in. You can see it's a little, I think next time I'll probably go, I don't think I needed this much soap. I don't think it'll make a difference, but I hope not. I hope it wasn't far too much soap. I'm gonna brew this all the way up to the handle edge there. All right. So there's our homebrew. And I'm going to put it on a time lapse for you guys, but for me, I will time it. Here is brand new Evaporust. Let's get that in there. As Evaporust ages, it starts to look like tea. It gets darker and darker and darker, and it gets very dark. And once it's really, really dark, then it stops losing its ability to remove rust. Now, in general, I've found you get pretty good results with fresh stuff relatively quickly. Sometimes I've seen it in 8 to 10 minutes. Let's see, depending on the depth and age of the rust, soak for at least 30 minutes is what Evaporust says. And then 12 to 24 hours for stubborn rust. All right, so let's go for 30 minutes. All right, so after 30 minutes, we could clearly see the graying color that we normally see from Evaporust, and the rust was clearly starting to come off. I could brush it off with my finger, and we were getting all the rust starting to come off. So that was looking very good. It was performing pretty much the same as I expect out of Evaporust. Now for the pear and the Evaporust. And these look really good too. They seem to me to have a little less rust. So the one difference I would say, in the first 30 minutes, it appeared that the Evaporust was working just a little bit quicker than the homebrew. But keep in mind too, we put the rustier pear in the homebrew. So they're probably very, very similar. If it was a little bit quicker, I would say it was just a tiny bit. I wouldn't say that, it certainly wasn't significantly different on time. Okay, I decided to check one more time. It's been about an hour. So let's see how things are doing here. Okay, the Evaporust looks really good. So it's been about an hour, and I'm not seeing any visible rust anymore. Give it a little brush here. Yeah, this looks really good. And as you'll see, the gray stuff will kind of come off. So you always get this like gray, color, and a lot of times if I hit that with dental abrasive or buffers, it'll completely come off and be nice and shiny. There's still there's some deep rust right here a little bit, but this is, it looks great. Let's take a look at the homebrew. Okay, this is looking good too. As you can see, we do have some rust here, but look, it's coming right off. Look at this. Look at that. So, and this one was worse. So remember, I put the one that had more rust, more challenging on the home. Look at it. It's all coming off. Every bit of this. Oh, that looks great. Let's dunk it. Yeah. So, wow. Yeah, I would say right now, these are equal. What I'm seeing here, this is completely removed all this rust. So you can see this is just loose stuff that just needs to be brushed off. But as I'm brushing, it's coming right off. And then when I redunk it here, you'll see, like, yeah, that looks great. That really, yeah, there's a couple spots, but you know what, just a little brush. It's coming right off. Yeah. Yeah. So I would say this homebrew is good. I don't care if it's a half hour or an hour. Because typically for me, I usually leave them in overnight, or a minimum of at least an hour, sometimes more. Yeah, it depends on the level of rust. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes stuff that comes in that's just a little rusty, it's done in 10 minutes. So I see one rough spot here. I'm hitting it with the metal side. Yeah, so that's working. It's still working good. It's hard to say about the color change. It's a little darker. But I think the only real difference here was I think, in my opinion, I probably put in too much Dawn dish detergent. I probably should have backed off on that a little bit. But it looks identical to what I normally see out of this product right here, which is the Evaporust. And you can see it's the same. They both turn that gray color, which is what happens. And yeah, this one looks great. And I can honestly say this one looks really good to me too. And at a much cheaper price. It's hard to say anything negative about it. I can't speak to longevity, but all I can tell you is, according to the guy whose formula this was, he gets longer use out of this than he does the Evaporust. He says the Evaporust turns like this. So this is old Evaporust. Let me show you that. You can see like it's this dark tea look. This is how it eventually looks. And then it just gets darker and darker. And the best way to check to see if it's still good or not is by, what do they call it? Specific gravity. And I have a specific gravity tester here that is designed for, well, let me correct. It wasn't designed for Evaporust. It was designed for testing anything that you needed specific gravity to test for. There's a certain range when you know that Evaporust has stopped working because it's absorbed so much rust, and what happens is the specific gravity on it changes, and then you just look for that change in number. So it's a submersible item that you kind of drop in, and then you read it and see, and if it tells you, if the number's not in where it's supposed to be, it's completely exhausted and it's time that you can dump it out and get rid of it. Not sure if that would be the same here, but it very well could be. You could easily figure that out by just testing a new batch, keep going with it till it's exhausted, and then test that, and then you can kind of get an idea of what the specific gravity would be on the homebrew when it's exhausted. But these look great. Like I said, I can't speak for the longevity of the product, but right now, it to me looks like it works pretty darn close to almost exactly the same as the Evapor Rust. I am tempted to mix up another batch with a little less. I'm going to use just a small amount of detergent so that I don't have this funky looking, it's kind of cool looking, this little iridescent cloud of stuff in there. It's clearly not hurting it at all. It's actually, it looks great. I mean, it cleaned up really well because I like to take all this gray stuff off. I mean, I'm not seeing any rust on these at all anymore. So that was an hour, and that they are clear except for this little tiny. There's a tiny little piece here, and there, and I'm sure by morning those are going to be gone. And pretty much the same here. We had one little spot that was on the inside. Yeah, it was right here, and it's almost gone. But yeah, so that's working real good. So our next step will be check it one more time in the morning, overnight, make sure it didn't eat the metal completely away, but I don't get the feeling that that would happen. They both look to be very comparative in their performance so far. Alrighty, so the overnight test on the Home Brew Evapor Rust is done. And let's take a look and see how everything looks here. I even threw in another pair of rusty ones last night at about 8 o'clock into this one just to see how they would do. So there's actually two pairs in here. So here's the original Evapor Rust. And you can see it did a fantastic job on these. There's absolutely zero rust on this pair anymore. They're ready to be rinsed off. And you can, like I said, you can polish off this gray black stuff. Comes off real easy. I'll show you, I can show you that on video, how easily that comes off, especially with dental abrasives. That's how I like to take it off. But the first thing you do, you should rinse it and just kind of give it a wash off. But we'll do that in a minute here. But you can see that looks great. And it's, if you notice here, if you look in the bottom, you'll see, you can see the rust that has gone to the bottom of this formula. So you can see it down there. So I have regularly have filtered Evapor Rust, and that has helped me, I believe, get a longer time out of it. Let's look at these other Felco pruners that I threw in here. So here's the original ones from yesterday. And I gotta say, they look great. It looks exactly the same. It really does. There is not a speck of rust anywhere on these pruners. They look beautiful. So that's good. So far, I'm gonna say the home brew is working. So here's the other pair I threw in that were rusty. And you can see, yeah, no problem. These look great too. No rust on there. So these are also ready just to be washed off. These only had kind of rust in this area and a little on the spring. But that looks really good and very similar, except that it's just not as clear. And I think that was my fault of using too much soap. So I think I put too much Dawn in. But if you look here, you can see here, we got even a whole bunch. We actually have more rust because this cleaned more, but this is still going strong. So I'm going to keep using, this homebrew solution and see how long it works for, and keep sticking things in there that are rusty. And I'll try and give you some, idea down the road in a later video of how long it runs good for, how long it continues to remove rust. But I'm suspecting it's probably gonna be just like the guy who originally found this formula, and he said it actually works longer than Evapor Rust. The only difference that I have seen so far is Evapor Rust, in my opinion, in that first half hour worked faster. But once given an hour, to me, essentially, they're exactly the same. We do still have to do the heating it test to see if that helps improve things, because it does speed up Evapor Rust, I have found, when you heat it up, and also putting it in an ultrasonic cleaner. And I think we're probably going to find out the same exact thing with the home brew that if we heat it and put it in an ultrasonic cleaner, of course, that's probably going to help just make it work faster too. But these look great. I have no complaints there. And I think, you know, it's kind of hard not to use it at literally like around 1/5 of the cost. If not, it might even be less than that. I didn't get super into the math, but definitely not difficult. The other thing I'm going to maybe play around with, so the other product I love from EvapoRust is EvapoRust Gel. So sometimes you have something that you can't really submerge easily, or it's really big. I've used EvapoRust Gel, and I thought it was kind of interesting. As I mixed up too much Dawn, you can see this it's kind of thick in there. You can see it. I started thinking, you know what? I wonder if we added something to just thicken that up even more, even something like a gelatin or like cornstarch or something. I'm wondering if we can get the consistency of this kind of a gel. And EvapoRust Gel is kind of, I always laugh because I kind of call it snot. Like it comes out and it's kind of a white, snotty looking stuff, and it is actually kind of stringy, like kind of sticks to stuff. I'll show you in another video sometime because I'm kind of getting ready to clean up here. But I betcha we could probably come up with a homebrew solution with this using the same formula and then just adding stuff to it that would kind of turn it into a thicker gel if we keep its other properties the same, which is like pH and everything else. And I can't imagine that like a gelatin, like a food gelatin, would change that at all. I think it would just thicken it up, and we might be able to make our own type of EvapoRust Gel. So that's just the thoughts I got going around in my head. But that's it. Just wanted to share that with you. I will put links in this video to where you can get citric acid for cheap, the baking soda. I'll put links in there too, but the best place I've found for that, once again, like I said, is Costco. And you do want to use a scale. I love my little Taylor scale. I'll put in a link for the digital scale and that kind of stuff. Anything else that comes to mind, but that's pretty much it. So that's the homebrew EvapoRust. And I got to give it, like, you know, a 2 thumbs up. It's working really great. All right, so have a nice day, everybody, and I will catch y'all later.